It occurred to me today that maybe sometimes we make our ritual do too much work and we expect too much of our ritual and of our spiritual practice, and that there might be things that we are looking to experience or feel that we are kind of expecting of ourselves through ritual that we might actually be better off looking for in other areas of our lives, and that there might actually be easier ways to experience those and to cultivate those in ourselves, rather than just focusing all the time on trying to do it through ritual or spiritual practice. I think the way this can happen is through, if we see other people, things that other people are doing, and we feel drawn in. There's something about someone else's practice or someone else's spiritual aesthetic that just kind of just rings a bell for us, that just kind of lights us up and makes us excited and inspired. And a lot of the time then the impulse is to try and replicate that directly. Like, we want what they have. There's something about what they're up to that just looks good to us. And I think it's a very normal reaction. I think we do this in a lot of different ways in life, and a lot of the time I think really what we are reacting to is the way that we think that thing, that experience, that ritual, that practice is making that person feel. And it's the feeling that we're after rather than the actual practice itself. And I know this is a kind of realization that I've had before, and you've probably had it too at various times, but I think very specifically when it comes to ritual and specific practices, that I don't know if I always kind of follow through with that idea as much as I probably need to. And as would probably be good for me to do. Like, it would probably be a good idea for me to take a harder look at some of the things that I feel kind of like I pressure myself into trying to achieve through ritual, or things that I'm always trying to kind of fit into my practice that just have never really fit. So I think a good example of this for me is witchcraft and magic. It's been a really long time since I've considered myself to be a witch. I would say it's been since I was maybe 15, 16 years old. Ever since I came back to spirituality, I kind of had a bit of a nihilistic hiatus in my late teens and early 20s, and ever since I came back to spirituality about age of 23 or so we're talking kind of 6 years ago, magic and witchcraft has not really played a role in my actual practice. But it has been something that I've continued to read about and be inspired by, and I've seen other people with amazing looking practices, and it's something that really excites me. And it's something that I've written about a lot in fiction. Like, I'm definitely going to be I'm working on various novels in which, you know, the characters are witches, or that there is some sort of magical system within that world, and it just does something for me. And I have experimented in the last 6 years, or well, more in the last 4 years before I came to Edinburgh, with trying to incorporate some of that into my actual practice, and trying to bring witchcraft into my practice without needing to have a literal belief in magic, because that was kind of what always held me back. And, you know, to an extent I think that worked, but I think a lot of the time it really just fell flat, and I'm realizing now that it's probably because I was trying to incorporate those feelings into my life and those experiences into my life the wrong way, in ways that just don't suit me as an individual. So I started thinking about, well, what is it about witchcraft then that excites me? Like, what do I see in witchcraft as a concept? And I think there are kind of 4 different things. So firstly, I really see the concept of the witch. For me, the witch is really connected to nature, to the earth's cycles. She is connected to all the other creatures on the earth. She is just so deeply attuned, you know, to what's going on around her. She can, you know, go outside and practically speak to the trees. She can practically hear them breathe. And that for me is just so powerful, and it really, really evokes something that I am always looking for in my life and in my spirituality. But for somebody who practices witchcraft, a lot of the time there is all this extra stuff of there being a spiritual realm that they're connecting, and they have ritual to achieve that, and they're working magic, and none of that really makes sense for me personally. Obviously then, when I look at it now, I can see that the best way for me to achieve that feeling is by being outside, by going on walks, by being in wilderness as much as I can, by climbing mountains and being in forests and woods and near trees, and and just giving myself the space and the time to get myself into that kind of mindset, to get myself away from civilization, away from other people, away from screens and words and kind of ideas in my own head, and try and get myself out of my own kind of space and into that web of life in a way that I see the witch as being able to do. And yeah, so that's one really good example of a way in which I can actually bring witchcraft to life in my life and in my experience without actually doing witchcraft. And then, I mean, there's various other things about witchcraft that kind of excite me as well. There's when it comes to that kind of side of witchcraft as being a way of connecting to spirits or spirit worlds. For me, I'm a monist, so I don't see there being other kind of spirit worlds. But the way that I interpret that is the witch connecting to her imagination and to her kind of her dream life and her psyche and things like that. And that's very definitely something that maybe I could do with incorporating into my life more as well. Sometimes if I feel like the need to be incorporating witchcraft into my practice, maybe I'm not writing enough, maybe I'm not thinking enough about my own kind of inner world and my own dreamscape and all that kind of thing. Like maybe I'm not letting my imagination run wild enough. And then there's kind of the aesthetic of witchcraft that really appeals to me as well. And yeah, just that basic sort of desire to create a witchy looking altar and witchy looking things. And you know, some of that connects to the imagination stuff and the connection to nature stuff, but I think also sometimes there's just a need in me to be more visual and to create visual art, to create things visually. I recently gave myself permission to not create visual art because I realized that sometimes I put too much pressure on myself to be creating in specific ways, and sometimes it's okay to just do the things that you're feeling at the moment. But I just thought earlier, well, you know what, maybe I do need more space in my life for visual creation, and maybe I just need to remove some obstacles to make that happen. And I'll get back to that in a second. And then the final aspect of witchcraft, or thing about witchcraft, I think that I realized like made me feel excited was the idea of the witch as an empowered being, as a woman who is, well, woman or man, but usually the witch archetype in the mind is female, who's just, you know, in the seat of her own power, and she knows what she wants, she knows exactly how she's going to get it, and she has the tools at her disposal to do so. And so often then it's about thinking about the trajectory of my life and making sure that I'm taking steps towards goals and actually affecting positive change in my life. So yeah, the thing I wanted to come back to, the idea I wanted to come back to was this idea of removing obstacles and allowing these kinds of things that we might be trying to incorporate in our life through ritual or through our spiritual practice, and it's just not quite working, and through allowing those things to kind of organically arise in other areas of our lives. So, you know, the visual art example is a really good one for me because, you know, I haven't had like an easy way of doing art, of making a visual art in a really long time. I haven't been in a habit of it, and I don't have like one specific medium that I'm comfy with, you know? And I've been in the process of trying to figure that out for some time, but that would be a really good place for me to start, maybe, is to get really honest with myself about what that would look like what a really organic and easy way for me to actually, you know, put pen to paper, to pick up a pencil, like what will I actually do, and what will be satisfying for me to do, what will be fun, what makes me feel playful when it comes to visual art. And yeah, with regards to all those other kind of different things that I might need to invite into my life, a lot of the time it is about removing those obstacles and thinking, well, how am I making this hard for myself? Like, in what ways am I obstructing this feeling or experience coming into my life? And yeah, just thinking about how I can just remove those obstacles. Because for me personally, trying to force myself into doing certain things, like trying to impose particular goals and aims and trying to impose new habits and new things that I need to do every day or weekly, or scheduling my life and stuff, really doesn't work for me. It's really very detrimental to my mental health for me to be too strict to myself in that way. So, you know, trying to order myself to do more visual art or to go for more walks or whatever isn't really going to be a positive thing for me, like trying to like overtly force it into my life. So I'm much better off to just try to remove the obstacles, like I say. But to do that really does require like the very first step of thinking, well, what is it about this type of practice, or what is it about the ritual that I'm trying to achieve, or what is it that I'm feeling frustrated about that I'm not bringing into my practice that I want in my life? Like, what kind of feeling or experience is it that I'm chasing? So yeah, I hope that maybe thinking about this in this way will be helpful for you if you are feeling frustrated with your ritual and your spiritual practice. If you sometimes feel like you're maybe trying to overachieve with it, if you're just putting too much pressure on the things that you're trying to do through ritual or spiritual practice, you know, ask yourself, well, why is it that I'm trying to do that through this particular way? And are there other things in my life that I can incorporate and encourage in myself that can be, you know, just as important to my spiritual self, but that doesn't have to all be experienced through the ritual medium, and that actually might be better experienced through another medium, like, as I said, spending more time outside and not spending time necessarily sitting indoors at an altar. So yeah, those are just the thoughts that I've had. I hope they'll be relevant for you too. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell button to make sure that you are notified whenever I post a new video, and I will speak to you again soon.